long as you could say the operant is texting in class, I want to decrease it so it's punishment, and I'm going to add something like a detention, or a whack with a noodle, or I'm going to take something away like your phone, or points off your grade, or something like that.
I'm so confused by the sunblock one.
The
Yeah, the
sunblock one?
sunblock.
Is
One
the
is-
sunblock the operant?
Putting on sunblock is the operant.
Okay,
Oh,
what
okay.
do you
And,
find
and I want to increase it, so it must be a reinforcer.
Yeah.
And what is going to encourage me to wear sunblock is avoiding sunburn.
I had flip flopped.
Got it? Okay. Good.
I see what you're saying.
Let's go to the sheet with the blanks on it and fill in what we know. On the top, operant conditioning is based on consequences. Most students, when they hear consequences, think negative, but consequences can be positive. So rewards or punishments, consequences. It was discovered by, you know one of the people.
Skinner.
Yes, Skinner. You know the other one? Yes, Thorndike. Yes, Skinner and Thorndike are the two who discovered it. The process, the operant, you know this, refers to the behavior being targeted. So whatever the behavior you're targeting is, that is the operant. The change in the operant due to consequences is called the law of effect, with an E. And would you please draw an arrow from effect to Thorndike, because that was his idea. It's a pretty common sense concept that I can change your behavior by manipulating consequences, but that's what this all is about. So law of effect by Thorndike, by adding rewards or punishments, I can change the operant. Reinforcement always increases the likelihood of the operant being repeated. Right. So you have a choice between a primary and a secondary reinforcer. A primary reinforcer is natural. You don't need to learn to appreciate it. A secondary reinforcement is not natural, and you have to learn its value. So things like money or points, those are secondary. Think dogs and babies. A dog and a baby, they wouldn't know what to do with money, and they don't understand points. So if you have to learn the value of it to appreciate it, it's a secondary reinforcer. Primary reinforcers: food, water, shelter. This one's a little bit awkward, but sex. If you think about early civilization, before humans really figured out what society is, sex was a big reinforcer. It reinforced social behavior, because the more social you were, the more you hung out with other people, the more likely you were to engage in that fun activity that keeps the species going. So that's why sex is considered a primary reinforcer, but not in the weird, awkward kind of way. The token economy is based on secondary reinforcers. So you collect your tokens or your coins or your Starbucks and stuff, and you can buy things with them. Whatever I give you only has value in the overall economy. So if I give you tokens, it doesn't really mean anything unless you can do something with them. You can buy points or buy candy or buy colored pencils or something like that. You know C and D. A positive reinforcement, a stimulus is added, right? And negative reinforcement, a stimulus is taken away or avoided. Would you please make sure to write avoided there? I wrote down the Premack principle for you. Would you take a minute and come up with an example? Never mind, there's one there. Come up with a different example. I forgot different example of the Premack principle, please. Got one? Well, I can use it right now, actually. I want you to sit through these boring notes, so I'm going to offer a more rewarding, fun activity, like a video, in order for you to do it. What's the operant? Wait, hold on. The operant is the behavior I'm targeting. Sitting through notes, and I want to increase that, so you know it must be positive. I'm sorry, it must be reinforcement. I'm going to give you something, a preferred activity, so this is a form of positive reinforcement. So what I'm going to give you is the opportunity to watch a little bit of the Big Bang Theory. There's a nice mishmash of positive reinforcement stuff in there. So that's what you get for sitting through these notes. But we're not quite done yet. You know, number 2, punishment always decreases the likelihood of the operant being repeated, or at least that's the intention anyway. And then you have positive, where a stimulus is added, and negative, where a stimulus is taken away or removed. You know what? I was thinking about that last period, and I don't know, because you don't really want to avoid a good thing. So I think it's a little harder for avoidance to work there. So I would stick with removed. I take something away in order to decrease that behavior. All right, last thing on the back side of there, schedules of reinforcement. If I'm going to reinforce or punish something, the next question is when or how? I have 2 choices, ratio and interval. A ratio schedule is based on the number of occurrences of the operand. So if I introduce a consequence every time, or every 2 times, or every 3 times, or whatever, I see the behavior, then that's a ratio schedule. An interval schedule is based on time. So regardless of how many times I see the operand, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, completely randomly, based on time, not the number of operands, I introduce the consequence. So that leads to a 4th step when you're trying to figure out operant conditioning. The first thing, what is the behavior or the operant? Am I trying to increase or decrease it, reinforcement or punishment? Am I adding or taking something away or avoiding something? And then the next thing is, am I doing this according to the operant or time? If I issue the consequence as a result of seeing the operant, then it's ratio. If I give the consequence as a result of an increment of time, then it's interval. After that, I have only one last question. Regularly or irregularly? If it's regular, then it's fixed. If it's irregular, then it's variable. I intended to give you a little blue dot every time you participated. Is that ratio or interval? How do you know? Because it depends on participation, and I said that the operand is participation. Is it fixed or variable? Fixed. Every time you participate, you get a blue dot. Or I could say every 2 times, that blue dot. Every 3 times, blue dot. But if there's a fixed regular ratio, if it's predictable, then it's a fixed ratio. Otherwise, if it's kind of random, every, I don't know, whenever I think about it, you'll say something and I'll give you a piece of candy. But you never quite know. That's intermittent ratio. It's still based on you doing the operand, but you don't know exactly when it's coming. If it's based on time, so it doesn't matter how many times you do the operand, but every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever, or let's say over a week, I keep track of participation, and anybody who has any participation gets kinky. It doesn't matter if you have 1 dot or 10 dots. So as long as you say something in that week time, then I'm basing the reward not on the number of operands, but on an increment of time, in this case a week. I'm paid on an interval schedule, so not by the number of hours I work. Every 2 weeks I get a paycheck, and that paycheck is the same whether I work 40 hours or 100 hours that week. So that's an interval schedule. In that case, that's fixed. Hi. It's Ella. I'm recording the class. So on the back here, for schedules of reinforcement, we have a ratio schedule. Reinforcement depends on the appearance of the operant. And again, you have fixed or variable. Interval schedule, reinforcement, or I guess punishment, depends on time. The last one is shaping. Anybody have a prediction of what shaping is? Dan?
Someone changes it to do like something specifically, like try to make some change with their behavior.
Changing their behavior, that's kind of the point of all operant conditioning. So you're in the right direction. It's a little bit more specific than that. Who here has trained their dog or cat or something to do something that's pretty impressive? Nobody has impressive animals in here? Yeah, what does your dog do?
Well, it wasn't my dog, it was a friend's dog.
Okay, that'll work.
Like I taught it to shake its paw
Mhm.
with another person's hand.
Okay.
So, I just gave her a treat every time she did that.
Okay, but did you have to break it down in steps?
Kind of.
Okay, if you do, then you're engaging in shaping, because shaking the paw is kind of complicated. So what you would probably do is, if I'm a little puppy here and I'm come on video here, right? So I'm the puppy. You want to first reinforce me raising my paw, and so anytime I do this, you give me a treat. Is that a primary or secondary reinforcer? Primary, because a dog doesn't need to learn to appreciate a treat, they just eat them. So I raise my paw, you give me a treat. Is that ratio or interval? How do you know it's ratio, Joanna?
Because it's based on the curves of the operant.
Great. So every time I raise my paw, I get a treat. And then, once I get that, and I can do this on command, then I extend my paw and I let somebody grab it, which some dogs don't like. So then you reinforce that. So I've shaped the behavior. Getting a dolphin to jump through a hoop definitely requires shaping, because they don't naturally just jump out of the water and jump through hoops. They might naturally jump out of the water, but I don't know about the hoop part. So you'd have to first shape them to go over something, and then do a little jump, and then do a bigger jump, and then do a bigger jump. Where have you shaped as you were learning a sport or something like that? Can you explain?
I don't know, when we have to do a turn, we have to work on first getting our balance, and then rotate like quarters, and then halves, and then one turn.
Okay, right. And so if you're gonna do all that dancey stuff, I highly doubt that you're getting chocolates or something or treats every time you do it. So what's the reinforcer?
Turn better every time.
All right.
It makes it easier.
Sure, it makes it easier. That sense of satisfaction, the praise from the coach, the being able to impress your fellow dancers, the sense of satisfaction that you can do it. But those are reinforcers too. So whether the reinforcer comes from inside or outside of you, if it's a complex operant that you're doing and you have to break it down and first get them to do this and then this, then you're engaging in shaping. Good on that sheet? All right. I have a clip from Big Bang Theory, and there are a couple of different examples of operant conditioning. So as you're watching, be able to identify how you know it's reinforcement or punishment, positive or negative, fixed or variable, ratio or interval. So break all those down.
Should I record this?